Hi, everyone, and welcome to the final week of September. My name is Krista, a practical astrologist. I'm here with Sonia of Celestial Astrology. Hi, Sonia.
Hello.
So we're going to look at September 24th to October 1st, and Mars is in Scorpio, so things are happening quicker, like per screen. We're looking at just one aspect. You can look at to the right of this is week 3. If you listened to last week's episode, we covered all of that. Mercury into Libra opposite Neptune, Sun in Libra opposite Neptune, the eclipse, the Sun in Virgo opposite Saturn. It was a lot, not to mention Venus squaring Uranus. I mean, there was a lot going on last week. And week 4, we're probably still going to be feeling some of that and understanding some of that and talking about it and writing about it with a Mercury signature that was in so much of that. But for this final week, the one major aspect to kind of consider is Mars in Scorpio. Mars is at home in Scorpio, and it's squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So here's the chart here. We have Mars and the moon both at 1 degree, which is kind of cute, squaring that 1 degree Pluto. There's also Uranus is at 1 degree on Gemini, which is in trine to Pluto, but Gemini and Scorpio don't really see each other. So we're going to talk about the fixed signs because Mars is in Scorpio, which is a fixed sign. Pluto's in Aquarius, which is a fixed sign. We have these two of the 4 fixed signs having these kind of power punching planets in them in a square, which is the nature of Mars. It's going to affect the others, which is Taurus and Leo. So what are your thoughts on just the nature of a square in general? How do you describe a square when somebody asks you, what does it mean that these 2 planets are square in my chart? Let's just start there.
Yeah, I mean, you start by saying it's of the nature of Mars, and sometimes you get this puzzled expression. And when we talk about Mars, we're talking about, I mean, first of all, it can cut things away, but I talk about is calling us to action. And then I'll liken it to like the strings of a guitar. So that there needs to be some tension in order to create the music. If the strings are slack, you can string away, or the strings of a piano, any instrument, any strung musical instrument needs that tension to be just right. If you overstring it, it comes out and it's out of tune. So you need to get that tension just right. And that's kind of like where a square is, where it's that little push of, right, something needs to be done here. You need to make an adjustment. It's calling you to take some kind of action in your life. It's not a time to sit back and just enjoy the view. It's time to get to work a little bit.
It's a kick in the pants, as we say.
Not so gentle. Yeah. Come on, get going. And particularly between these two, because like you say, that they are heavy hitters. Mars, especially in Scorpio, and in this first decan, it's ruled by Mars. So there is this doubled up energy, whether it's courage and passion and motivation that is bringing us. You can talk about the best expressions of Mars and the way that Mars comes out as a protector, which is the way I like to think of Mars when it's with the moon. The moon is fallen here and the moon is kind of a little bit lost. And I always think of Mars as like protecting the moon when she moves through Scorpio. I kind of like the moon in Scorpio. I've never quite known why, but it's always been quite a good time for me. I don't know if that's because I have Mars in Scorpio as well, that I feel the moon more when she's here and can connect with her. And I like a full or a new moon in Scorpio as well, which you really probably shouldn't do, but I do.
So what?
Yeah. So it's like, okay, it doesn't make sense on the books, but if you feel into the moon's energy when she travels through the different signs, you get a sense of where she is and how she likes a different sign. And she does struggle here. She has to rise up out of some difficulty. And I suppose especially if Mars is there, he can act as her protector and her guardian and supporter. So it is nice when she's there with Mars.
Yeah, and Mars just being in a water sign is getting the trine from Jupiter that's over there and in Cancer. It's also getting a trine from the North Node and a trine from Saturn. It's in Pisces. And, Pluto in Aquarius, it can't see its ruler, Saturn. It is in a trine to Uranus, so it's connected to that. And it's a trine to the Sun and Mercury. So it's almost like there are some teams forming between the air signs and the water signs, because they are adjacent to each other. They can't see their next door neighbors, but they can see their friends of their next door neighbors. And I like the moon and the Mars right next to the moon. It's almost like Mars is the warrior with its arm around the moon, trying to carry the moon safely through so
Mm.
that Pluto can't injure it. The square aspect really does move us forward. And fixed signs, their nature is to sustain. And so to shift a fixed sign, it means that there's going to be real change that is probably going to last a lot longer. And so impulsive changes can be harmful here unless they were a change that you've wanted to make that you've waited too long and now you're finally making them. Just making a flippant decision maybe isn't the best way to approach this aspect, but thinking through what's the Scorpio house in your chart? Where's the Aquarius house in your chart? And for the fixed signs, the fixed rising signs, it's going to be the really loud angles. So Scorpio risings, Mars is in the first. For Aquarius risings, Pluto's in the first. So it's like really calling you as the character in your story. What changes are you involved in making? Mars is making the applying square to Pluto. So Mars is in a superior position. It's at home. So it doesn't have to look at its ruler. It is its own ruler. So I think that Mars is just in a better position here, that Pluto unearths. And Scorpio is a great investigator. So, what is being unearthed here that is becoming the challenge of this angle? For Taurus risings, this is the house of relationships where Mars is, and Aquarius is at the top of the chart. And then for Leo risings, this is the house of relationships where Pluto is. And the bottom of the chart is like with the taproot or the home or the nest where Mars is. So it's the loud angles that this is hitting, and the defensive nature, the unearthing nature, that blend between the two, and that kind of duel between Pluto and Mars. I mean, this aspect really the only one we're going to have to contend with this week. But I feel like it might be a doozy for the fixed signs, and maybe good that we don't have the distraction of a bunch of other things going on. Like we can really put our attention to making good, sustainable change for whatever disruption is kicking us in our pants.
I think Mars in Scorpio is kind of like the best sign and planet to be squaring Pluto, because Scorpio and Mars are probably the only planets not scared to look Pluto in the eye. The other
Yeah.
planets, what Pluto is on,
Famous last words, though.
yeah, yeah, there could be.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, Mars is ready to face whatever we hope. Well, he's got his best equipment and armor there,
This
and
reminds
he,
me of a story. When I was 18 and I lived in my first apartment, moving out of the house, I lived with my boyfriend, and I came home from work one day, and then somebody started banging on the door. And my boyfriend would not get up to go check the door because he was scared. It was sounded scary, you know? And so I was mad that, and I'm Scorpio rising. I was mad that somebody was banging on my door, scaring me. And so I just, 5'5", 130-pound little white girl opening the door, just like, had my face up, just like, what the fuck is wrong with you banging on my door? And it was just a neighbor. He was just banging loudly. But I remember that. I have that memory so clear of like, I remember being scared and then getting angry that they had made me scared. And then I was mad at them. I wasn't scared anymore. And that's such a Mars thing of just being like, you made me scared. Like, how dare you do that? And it was like the bravery and the courage. I was still frightened, but I got the courage because no one else was coming to my defense. I had to open up the door and challenge whatever was going to come through that door, whatever that unearthing of that mystery was, of whatever was behind my door. Luckily, I was fine, but I think of that, of like being an 18-year-old kid and kind of having that chutzpah that I still have, of kind of like, I get scared a lot, and that just hones my ability to know what is worth to open the door for, and when it's worth to actually hide and ignore it. Having that courage muscle. But that is definitely, yes, Scorpio Mars has the courage because it's defending something, and it's ready to fight in order to defend, not just fight just because it likes to fight, but fight as a mechanism of defense of the home, or defense of self, or defense of loved ones, or defense of belief, whatever that defense is.
yes, tapping
It,
into the
yeah,
anger as what it's actually for, which is
yeah,
because a lot these days there's anger floating around and it's not channeled and it's not got a purpose. But that is what it's for, is when we need to defend, is to be able to tap into it and use it judiciously and carefully and consciously. Um, and if we haven't got that anger within us, then it can be unhealthy because then we can't defend ourselves. But yeah, little Krista going to that door being angry. This is my door. How can you bring that to my door? I like that image. You don't come to a Scorpio rising store and bring your anger in, and you're going to be
Well,
met.
you find out.
Yeah, if you want to do that, this is what you're going to meet. Go find somebody else to be aggressive with.
Yeah, that was a complicated apartment. I had poltergeist and ghostly experiences along that same the door was at the bottom of a staircase that had that whole apartment was just haunted. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and there were so many ghosts there that I took it for granted when I was there. Leaving it, I realized like how haunted that place actually was. But the knocking at my door was not a ghost. It was a living human.
Maybe they were tapped into that though and didn't know why. So maybe they had fear as well.
Yeah, but I think of ghosts for Scorpio rising, Pluto's in the fourth. What is it about the ancestors or the ghosts or the things that haunt us from the past? Genetic memory and DNA, familial history that comes up that we have to contend with. you
Mhm,
know, Being a white person in America, my family immigrated over in the early 1700s. I'm sure that my family enslaved other people. That's just a history that is a part of me. I don't know for sure, but I mean, how could it not?
mhm,
Right. And it's like that sort of thing that gets unearthed, and you have to contend with that, and you have to reconcile that, and you have to work through it. And what healing can come from that, of that recognition and that reconciliation. A lot of it is bringing out those secrets into the light of day to then deal with. And a lot of it's not pretty. It can be that unearthing of stuff from the family line for Scorpio risings. For Aquarius risings, though, I think of like challenges in the work environment, or what you're known for, your visibility, that really challenging, who you are as a person. Like, if you have a job that you absolutely hate, that might come to a breaking point of having Mars up there making those demands on you, and really having to make that choice of that duel of the work that I'm doing. Is it really my authentic self for who I am, or who I really want to become? You're a Taurus rising. So what do you think of it being in the 10th and the 7th?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I suppose. The Pluto through my 10th, I feel, has been about my talking to camera, because that's been a challenge for me that I've been consciously managing since Pluto started the ingress. It's like, okay, building up to this. And I wonder if in the 7th, being about other people, maybe consciously reaching out and speaking, bringing other people in, meeting with other people, and because I very much work within our Ask group, talking to people that I know, and I have accepted one or two invitations to talk to people, but I'm very careful and slow with them because it's a process for me. But I know that around this week I'm going to be preparing for a talk, my first talk that I'm doing early October. So that's a part of it. I'll probably be having my practice runs that week or the week just before. So fine tuning that talk. So yeah, it's going to be around that time that Pluto's activated for me, and it is
Mm.
about this confidence talking and finding my voice.
I see also that you have a sense of fidelity of friends, and maybe this isn't, your specific situation, but, is there this bonded fidelity that you have with other people that is then causing tension because there's other things coming into the work environment? So if a Taurus rising, uh, Taurus is in the first, Aquarius is in the 10th, which is kind of how we see people, typically career work. And if there's a sense of honor and duty that I'm going to work with these people that have already proven to be trustworthy, but then there's this tension of, but there's potential of, these new innovative things coming in the work, and they're causing me to break away from these contracts or these relationships that I have, even temporarily. They can be really hard for fixed signs. And again, I'm not saying it's necessarily for you, but just for any Taurus rising,
Mm.
understanding that fidelity is such a beautiful trait, but it can also be suffocating. And that Pluto up in the 10th can kind of help unearth that, like, why are you faithful to this relationship, or why are you, choosing to stay in this particular contract with this particular, business or whatever it is. Pluto coming up there, unearthing that there's potential for new things, and to be brave, and to have that connection of newness and the chance to crack open that shell and create new fidelity with new things. I can see that for Taurus risings. It's great having a friend that has Scorpio Mars because she is very faithful and very true, authentically true to all of her friends. It's very lucky to have a Scorpio Mars in the 7th house friend like Sonia.
Yeah, that's me.
What about for Leo rising? So then we have Aquarius in the 7th house of other people, and then Scorpio is down there in the 4th. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, that's a good one, isn't it? It's Pluto there changing those relationships and Mars wanting to change the family dynamics, or maybe the information that's coming from ancestors, or maybe even your actual home environment, maybe a pull to move or change something around your home. Could even just be a switch around of where the furniture is or the color of the curtains or something very simple like that, but wanting to make that change. But Pluto bringing in the 7th, like it's going to be a 20-year transit. So it's not fast changes, but whenever these planets like Mars activates it, that's when you see some clues about what this longer transit is for you. So this is pushing you to make the first changes of what's going to be this long-term change. So it's like these initial changes bringing that in. So it could be that these significant relationships, these one-to-one relationships or close relationships in your life, so close friendships, these people that you're in contact with daily, I think of as opposed to in the 11th house, they're more acquaintances or work colleagues or whatever that support you. Whereas in the 7th house, they're very regular friends that you maybe have WhatsApps and talk about your pets to or your dreams or those more intimate things, people who know you much more closely, and also your business colleagues. But then how changes at home can affect that. I mean, even if you move areas, that can affect your work and business contacts. I mean, it doesn't always have to be a move. That's one of those decisions, but it could be with Pluto unearthing deep things. It can be information from ancestry and land, like really connecting with the land that you're living on or the land that you're born into. There's two different types of land that we're connected to. I mean, I've been very connected recently to the land of my mother's. Even though I wasn't born there, I didn't grow up there, but I visited several times a year. So I know that land intimately.
Hmm.
And my mother and my grandmother and generations before me, it was in my grandfather's family. And so my sister was visiting and she brought me back some heather that I've planted in my garden now.
Hmm.
Just making those connections is a way that the 4th house can show up.
Yeah, I'm gonna see it as like doubling down or digging in your heels of that family of origin,
Mm.
with Scorpio in the 4th of really rooting down and digging into it and maybe even doing a genealogical ancestry research. That in itself reveals new relationships, realizing that you have cousins that you didn't realize you were related to, but like having that dig down of the 4th of that ancestry connecting to that Pluto in the 7th for Leo risings. But
Mm.
yeah, you're right. Like those two different types of land, like land that you know that we're born, and then land that we are connected to from the matrilineal line, or what is it that connects us to places that feel like home. Whether that we were born there or not. I'm sure if you've traveled around, you probably have gone to a city and you're just kind of like, I know this place. Like, why do I know this place? I've never been here before in my life, and I don't ever want to leave.
Yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. And then also the land that we're living on, I did research into what's beneath the surface of the earth where I'm sitting. You can get geological maps and I found out that where I am is kind of in the ice age. Everything from around the shores of Britain came inland. And where I am, we've got the greatest mixture of stones and rocks and everything that got swept in from
Hmm.
all over the island.
Wow.
So we've kind of got everything beneath my feet. And I kind of love that.
Yeah.
And I also researched the original tribes as well that lived here sort of before the Normans invaded. Who were we?
Yeah.
Actually, the blood came down and it was the Mercian tribe that lived where I am now. So it's just having that connection with it. So I can think of those people who knew this land and walked and worked on it differently, but it's the same land. It holds those same stories. You can tell I've got 4th house planets.
You dug deep.
Yes.
And maybe that's what this week is. Maybe it's a week of just like digging deep and dealing with the challenges, the just put your head down, deal with it so that you can like get it right. Get it so that it has a sustainable fix to make like real change. Not something that you're not going to fix it with duct tape. You're going to fix it with, real tools so that you don't have to keep addressing it. But yeah, let us know what comes up for you, what your rising sign is, and where this transit is happening for your natal chart. And I'm kind of glad we just have this one for the week to kind of end the month this way before we get fully into Libra season. All right. Well, I think that that closes us out. Thank you so much, Sonia. And my name is Krista, Practical Astros. This is Sonia of Celestia Astrology. And we did an eclipse workshop in the middle of September that you still have access to if you would like to get the workbook and the recording. I stood on my soapbox and gave a long treatise of why you should do it. So I won't repeat that now, but you can listen to the last 10 minutes of last week's episode, and I extol all the virtues of doing eclipse work. But I just would encourage you to look into it if you're interested in looking at the eclipses within your own natal chart. And we will return again in the spring to do the final third of this Pisces Virgo eclipse series. But with that, have anything else, Sonia?
No, that's it. We hope you enjoy it. It's been great fun to do that eclipses workshop for us, and we
Hmm.
all learned something from doing it. But we love when people came live. So yeah, look out for those dates in the spring.
All right. And with that, we'll close. Thanks so much. Have a good week.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.